Okay, class, we're going to start with some math, then we're going to get into the various investments and topics. So, for the Series 6 and the SIE, you should know the following. I'm going to present the same video for those. So, your first concern is very simple. Authorized stock, issued stock, treasury stock, and outstanding. So, authorized stock is the stock that you go to your state to incorporate your company, and you pick a very high large number. You want it very high because you want it to last for about 20 years maybe. So let's say 20 million. 20 million shares. Are you going to issue 20 million right now? No. Your company just started. Typically you're going to have private owners, or you're going to be the only owner. But the state where you incorporate is going to want to know who owns what stock. And you're going to say 200,000 shares are going to be issued to start it off. Now that would make 200,000 shares outstanding. It's out in the place with investors. It doesn't have to be a public company to follow this. Outstanding shares could be with only one owner. Okay? But as time goes on, let's say it's spread out between 20 different owners, and somebody wants to get out of the business. They don't want the stock anymore. They got 20,000 shares. So the company decides to buy it back. They buy the 20,000 shares. This is treasury stock. This is the company buying the stock back from the investors. Has nothing to do with the U.S. Treasury. Okay? Now, outstanding shares is going to decrease. So now outstanding shares is 180. This simple math. Get that out of the way. If the question is, 200,000 shares were issued, 20 million authorized, the authorized stock has nothing to do with it. The calculation they're looking for is right here. They want you to determine the outstanding shares of the treasury or the issued, who knows. What is it? What if they don't give you how many shares were issued? They just give you treasury and the outstanding. Add them. Add them up. Okay? That's the first situation you're going to come across in math on the test. And in my textbook as well, because I take it directly from the FINRA outline on the exam. And that's the first thing they talk about. Next they're going to talk about the current yield, stock splits as well. So let's go into stock splits. Stock splits can be forward or reverse. In a forward, they're going to increase the number of shares in the market. They're going to give you more shares, but they're going to decrease the stock price. That's the whole goal, is to lower the stock price in a forward. So if it's a 5-to-2, a reverse would be 2-to-5. Meaning for every 5 shares that you have, in the end you're only going to own 2. Okay? For every 2 shares you have, you're going to end up owning 5 in a forward. So here, in the reverse split, they're trying to increase the price in the marketplace. They're going to do it. They're going to flood more shares here, but they're going to take away shares here in the reverse. So, and you just turn in your shares and you get a new certificate with lower shares, but dollar value in the marketplace is going to be much higher. So let's do one calculation. Let's do the forward, it's the most popular. You own, let's say, 400 shares at $50 a share. So you got a portfolio of $20,000 in that stock. After we calculate it, multiply the two answers, it should equal 20,000 now. So let's take a look at a forward split. Let's say 5 to 2. How do we figure out the number of shares? Okay, we take the 400 shares, multiply by the first, divide by the second. Okay? So now, this is going to transform into 1,000 shares. But how do we figure out the value of the stock? The price, the new price of the stock. It was $50. We divide by the first, multiply by the second. Okay? Divide by the first, multiply by the second number. So now we got $20,000. 1,000 shares at $20 as opposed to 400 shares at $50. The same value. There is no tax consequence. There's no tax consequence. In a reverse split, we're doing the same thing. For the number of shares, you multiply by the first, divide by the second. In the price of the stock, you divide by the first, you multiply by the second. It's all going to be the same process, just different numbers. Okay? That's stock splits. Keep in mind, reverse, they're trying to raise the price in the marketplace on the stock. In a forward split, they're trying to lower the price. Okay? Now, let's get on to the next one. Current yield and dividend yield. Current yield is for bonds. Okay? So you got a 6% bond, and you got $900 bond price. Maybe they just say a bond at 90. They say a bond at 90, what are they saying? Okay, 90 times how many? Times $10 a point equals $900. Okay, every point is $10. Okay, so let's go into that, into the calculation. The current yield is, annualize this, on a $1,000 bond. It's always going to be based on the 1,000, not on the 900. So that's $60. Divide that by 900, 6.67%. Trust me, I cheated. I did this before. Okay, so that's the current yield. This is telling me I have a bond that's now worth $900. Maybe I'm just buying right now, but maybe I bought it at $1,000 and the price of the bond went down. Why would it go down? It went down because, what happened? Interest rates went up. Who's going to buy my $1,000 bond for $1,000 if all they're going to get is $60, which is 6%? Marketplace, it's in at 6.67. So the only way somebody can sell that bond in the marketplace is to drop the price so that it is close to what the pricing, what the yields are in the marketplace. Okay? That's current yield. You're taking the current market price of the bond and you're dividing it by the annual interest, which is based on 1,000. Okay? But let's say we need to do yield to maturity. Okay, we need one other thing. We need the maturity. Let's say it's 10 years. So now, how are we going to find the yield to maturity? We know that is the current yield calculation. What's our discount? What's our premium? What's our benefit? $100. Okay, $1,000 bond. I only have to pay $900 for it. Okay, so that's going to benefit me $100. What's the maturity? 10 years. We're spreading that $100 over the maturity years. So we're spreading $10 a year. Okay? We're adding it because it's a benefit to us. We have to think of this as a buyer, somebody who's going to buy this bond. What's the yield now? Don't look at it as an owner like, oh, I lost. It's down, so it's negative. No. It's a $100 benefit to a buyer. So that's plus. Down here, we get the average of the current market price and the face value. Face value of a bond in your calculations, always 1,000. Divide that by 2. Okay? So right off the bat, I know this is 950. Okay? 950. So this is going to be 70 divided by 950. And that's going to give us a yield of 7.37. Okay? Because we're adding in that benefit. We're calculating that benefit into the works, not just doing a straight pricing from the interest. Because we're actually getting 10 extra bucks every year. If we hold that to maturity, that's what we would have made. Not the 6%. Somebody who buys a bond at $1,000, 6%, they're going to get $60 a year, every year and forever. So, what's their yield? 6% always. Doesn't matter. What if the interest rates go down or up? Doesn't matter. It's going to be 6% to the buyer who bought it at this rate. As long as they hold it to maturity, this doesn't matter. What if the price goes up to 1,100? This could be 5.1% or something like that. It doesn't matter. They're getting $60, 6%. They bought it at 1,000. They hold it to maturity. They got 6%. What we're doing here is calculations based on prices changing, interest rates changing in the marketplace. We're trying to see what the value of that bond is based on what happened to interest rates over time. Okay? So that's current yield and yield to maturity. Now, the difference, remember, I did the $100 discount, and I added, if this is a premium bond at $1,100, that would be a $100 premium extra that I had to pay. I would subtract, and then I'd take that $1,100 plus the 1,000, then it'd be divided by 1050. Okay, so that's bonds. We're going to also do an example of bonds with the charts and understand the relationship on how they work. This is just the math that we're doing right now. So now let's look at dividend yield. So dividend is stock. And if they pay a dividend, let's say it's a common stock, and they're paying a dividend of 50 cents. We pay a quarterly dividend and it's 50 cents. Well, to do the dividend yield, and the stock price is $40 in the marketplace right now. What we have to do is we have to turn this into an annual. And to do that, it's 0.50 times 4. 4 quarters in a year. So they're paying a $2 annual dividend. You take that $2 and you divide, let's just make the math simple, and you divide it by 40 equals 1/20 equals 5%. So the dividend yield on a $40 stock that's paying $2 annually is going to be 5%. Okay. Now we got to do a calculation for your annuities. So let's take a fixed annuity. And what we're going to do is we're going to look into the exclusion ratio. This is the ratio, the percentage that is excluded from taxation. They put money in after tax, so they're not going to tax that when they take it out. So you have $100,000 that you put in. Maybe you put $40,000 one time, 20, and then another 40. It added up to $100,000. Now, let's say you're just going to take a withdrawal, and let's say it grew to $400,000. Okay, $400,000. Value now. Deposited. Okay. You call me up and you say, hey Greg, I want $50,000 out of my annuity. I want to buy a boat. Okay, so I say, no problem. We'll get that out to you. He says, what's the tax consequence? I say, oh, you're not withdrawing. You're just withdrawing. You're not annuitizing. Oh, that's correct. I just want to take the money out. I still want it to grow on that. Okay, so there's $300,000 in growth. Last in, first out. So the growth came in last. That comes in. That comes out first. So the $50,000 ordinary income, all of it. All of it. Okay? So now he's going to have, right? That's what's going to be the value after that. It's still going to count as a $100,000 deposit, and none of that is going to be excluded. So he has to pay taxes on that $50,000 that he takes out because he didn't annuitize. He didn't set up a scheduled benefit program. But now let's say that he did. It grew back to $400,000. He now wants to annuitize. He calls up, he says, Greg, how much can I get? I say $4,000 a month. Great. How much is that? How much is taxable? I'm going, okay, you put in 100. It grew to 400,000 now. There's the formula. 1/4. 1/4 equals 25% exclusion. Okay? So 1/4 of this is $1,000. Tax-free. It's return of the premium that you paid. $3,000 a month. Ordinary income. Okay? Ordinary income. So every year he's going to have to declare $36,000 as taxable. That's for a fixed annuity. A fixed annuity. Let's take the same scenario. It works the same way with last in, first out on just a withdrawal. The growth comes out first. But once again, this is a situation, it's now a variable annuity. So what we have is a calculation based on life expectancy. So they look up the chart, they say, okay, this is how old you are. You're expected to live 20 years. And how much did you deposit? $100,000. $5,000 is excluded from taxes annually. Okay? So whatever the money that comes out to him, 5,000 of it every year is going to be excluded from taxes. The rest will be ordinary income. Okay? Ordinary income. Now, that's your math. We're going to get into options a little differently. I'm going to do math and I'm going to do scenarios and identification in options. I'll leave that later. But this is what you need to know for the test, the SIE and the Series 6. Okay? Take her easy.